a Major 1, Katowice, Cologne, 3 Blasts and PGL. All of these are the achievements of Team Spirit in a year and a half. Achievements of a team that made fans believe once again that the CIS could be on top. And in 2 main disciplines at once. Yes, the Dota Dragons gained worldwide fame and recognition earlier than the CS boys. But the Counter-Strike guys are already breathing down their teammates' necks. But how did a team that had been floundering in Tier 3 for 5 years first manage to break into Tier 1 and then start destroying everyone left and right? Today, we will figure it out. But first, let me remind you, now you can view detailed statistics of all the items that have dropped from cases on your account since the moment it was created. To do this, install the Steam Inventory Helper extension. Then open the history from the inventory or by using the quick access buttons on the left side of the screen. Click Refresh Data and wait until the extension reads and structures the history of case openings on the account. The obtained data is arranged into a chart where you can see which items and in what quality have dropped the most, as well as from which cases they were received. Team Spirit began its history on December 6, 2015. It was on this day that the CEO of the club, Nikita Chukalin, announced the first roster for the organization in Dota 2. The CS team appeared only a year later, in June 2016. At the current moment, apart from CS and Dota, the Dragons are also represented in Hearthstone and more recently in Mobile PUBG and Mobile Legends. By the way, of the original rosters in the older disciplines, only Silvername from Hearthstone remains. Both in CS and in Dota, the lineups changed many times. So, the first CS roster: Anton Kibaken-Kolesnikov, Dmitry Dima Bandurka, Vadim Davkost Vasiliev, Dmitry Sotvik Forostyanko, and Pavel Koldy Veklenko, with Nikolai Kertus Poluyanov as coach. If most of these nicknames don't ring a bell, that's no surprise. Except for the coach, the guys did not shine either before Spirit or after. The only player from that roster whose career is still active and at a fairly high level is Sotvik. He is the coach of Team Spirit Academy and in general has been inside the Dragon structure for 10 years. First as a player of the main CS roster, then as a player of Spirit's daughter Espada, and after that as the Academy coach. The first year of the roster can be called typical for the Tier 3, Tier 2 scene. Both wins and losses at Tier 3, occasional forays into Tier 2, and qualifications for serious tournaments. And, to be fair, sometimes these forays were even successful. For example, Spirit took second place at the CIS Minor for the Atlanta 2017 Major, securing themselves a ticket to the Major qualifier. However, the miracle didn't happen. 2-16 against Team Envious with Kenny's and Apex in the lineup, and elimination from the qualifier in last place. Translated into today's tournament system, the Dragons qualified for the Major but dropped out in the Challenger stage.
Positions already. That second one, the NIP Molotov in as well. Kenny was a high flash, not on fire just yet. There are players close though. Dima shut down. There goes Sophic as well. The bomb spotted. Grenade coming in to do more damage. There's NBK. Molotov kill. Apex on the site. Bursting. Take down Bacon. Got a Tech 9 as well. And that's almost the GG. Running out of bullets is Davkost. Not much you can do there.
2017 turned out even worse than 2016. Rare wins at Tier 3 and not a single major run. First 7th to 8th place at the minor before Krakow, then 3rd before Boston. During this time, there were roster changes. At the end of March, Anton Kibaken-Kolesnikov left the team, replaced by the much more renowned Sergei Starix Ishchuk from Natus Vincere. However, Na'Vi experience did not help in Spirit. Already at the beginning of October, Starix left the team. He was replaced by Vladislav Arch Svistov, a little-known Tier 3 player, but this change didn't help either. A decision was made for another replacement. In January 2018, Arch was replaced by Viktor Somdiyung Orudjev. The 20-year-old newcomer to the esports scene at that time was considered one of the most promising young players. In late 2017, he won the November Face It Pro League, having qualified just a month earlier, and the fresh blood clicked. In 2018, the Dragons played confidently on the Tier 2 scene, although there was no talk of stability or demolishing opponents, just an average Tier 2 level, which after a year and a half one step lower could be called an achievement. It was in 2018 that Team Spirit first truly attracted the attention of a wider audience. This was at the London Major. The Dragons were one step away from reaching the Legends stage, losing in a tough battle to Tyloo. That inferno with double overtimes alone was worth it. and that was on the old MR15. In early 2019, the team qualified through the minor for the Katowice Major, but were eliminated without chances in the challenger stage with a 0-3 record. Changes came quickly. In February 2019, Team Spirit said goodbye to Davkost and Dima, replaced by the then little-known Artem I Disbalance Igorov, an experienced Tier 2 player Leonid Chopper Vishnyakov, still with hair back then. 6 months later, the results didn't change, so reshuffles reached the last 2 players from the founding roster. At the end of September 2019, Koldi1 and Sotfik left. They were replaced by Nikolai Mir Bityukov from Gambit and Boris Magixx Vorobyev from Espada. By the way, part of the players from Spirit had already gone to Espada. Looks strange, right? Actually, it's simple. Espada was essentially Spirit's second roster, a kind of farm club, not to be confused with an academy. Back then, there were almost no precedents for deliberately developing youth like now, and Espada players weren't only young. Most likely, the reason Espada existed de jure outside Spirit was the policy of tournament operators regarding conflict of interest. 2 rosters from one organization could not play at the same event. Otherwise, who knows what could happen in their matches? To prevent such situations, only 1 roster per organization was allowed. And while Magixx was clearly a promising young talent, it's worth stopping to talk about Chopper and Mir in more detail. For a long time, they played together in Vega Squadron, a Tier 2, Tier 3 org on the same level as Spirit in those years. And Vega was nothing less than kryptonite for the Dragons. They stopped them at minors, majors, regional qualifiers and tournaments. And not only Spirit suffered. Vega became famous at the major qualifier for Atlanta 2017 when they eliminated ninjas in pajamas with a humiliating 16-2 score. For Vega, who lost the next match and dropped out anyway, this victory didn't mean much beyond good feelings. But for the legendary NIP tag, it became the point of no return. After that, the org never returned to its former level and is still in a sad state to this day. Special attention should be paid to Mir. In Vega, he was a decent rifler, later bought by Gambit, but in Gambit, he completely failed. Many had written him off, so his move to the Dragons didn't cause much hype, but Mir began to shine. From late 2019 through all of 2020, Spirit played 2 levels above their previous years. Tier 3 tournaments were forgotten altogether, and Tier 2 appeared in their schedule as often as Tier 1. Sure, one might say their success was due to the pandemic and online play, but everyone played online, so everyone had the same conditions. In 2020, Spirit finished the year in the HLTV Top 20 for the first time in the org's history, at 19th, and Mir was in the top 10 players by stats against top 20 teams. 8th place, only behind the stars. It was truly his renaissance. Nevertheless, after a year without reshuffles, it was time for changes. In January 2021, I Disbalance left the team, and his place was taken by Abdul Degster Gasanov, who had played the previous season for Espada with a 1.25 rating. Many were already talking about this sniper. He was predicted a great future, and as we now know, they were absolutely right. And the beginning of 2021 for Spirit was incredibly successful. First a win at a Tier 2 DreamHack, and then an unbelievable performance at online IEM Katowice, where the Dragons reached 3rd to 4th place. In the play-in, they crushed Big, the top 4 team of 2020. In the group, they closed G2, the top 5 team of last year, followed by top 6 Heroic, and finally Astralis, the champion lineup and top 1 team of 2020. After trading maps, the match went to the decider, Inferno, which fans of the Danish org still see in their nightmares. 15 rounds on CT side, 1 lost pistol and a 1 force buy from Spirit. The top 19 team wiped their feet on the legends. Dupree called Team Spirit a wall that couldn't be broken or bypassed. In the semifinals, Spirit faced their familiar CIS rivals Gambit, and this time couldn't get through. By the way, that Katowice became true CIS domination. Of the 6 teams in the final stage, 4 were from the region, and even the final was a CIS derby. In March 2021, Sotfik returned to the team, but already as assistant coach under Certus. Yet, in July, Sotfik went to coach the Dragons Academy, and his place was taken by Sergei Hali Shavayev. After the lively start of the season, results declined. Yes, Tier 2 tournaments were won without problems, but at the top level, things went badly. 9th to 12th at DreamHack and IEM 16, 13th to 16th in Cologne, 17th to 20th at ESL Pro League Season 14, and elimination at 2 to 3 in the Challenger stage of the Stockholm Major. For a team aiming at Tier 1, such results clearly didn't fit. In November, Chopper, Mir and SDI were benched. In the end, Chopper was returned in February next year, Mir was sold to Entropic, and SDI left for Mad Lions. They were replaced by Academy players Patsi and Siren. At the same time, Halley replaced Certus at the helm, the last active member of Spirit's very first roster. Thanks to the reshuffle, Team Spirit sensationally advanced through the Challenger stage at 3 to 1, and then went 3 to 0 in the Legends stage at the Antwerp Major. In the quarterfinals, the Dragons easily passed the Brazilians from Furia, but in the semi-finals, in a fierce fight, they lost 0 to 2 to the future major champions, FaZe Clan. Soon after, in June, Degster was benched. According to the player, the main reason was that the organization required players to guarantee being in Serbia 9 months per year, something Abdul could not and did not want to do. He was replaced by Igor "Wonderful" Zdanov, while Degster went to OG in July. With Wonderful, the Dragons' results stayed at the pre-major level, 9 to 12th in Cologne, 13 to 16th at EPL Season 16, and 5th to 8th at the Rio Major. The same scenario followed in the first half of 2023. Last places at tournaments and elimination at the European RMR for the final CSGO Major. Then Spirit went for big changes. Siren, Wonderful, and Patsi were benched, and instead 3 Academy players joined. Miroslav Zontix Plakotia, Artyom Artfrost Karitonov, and Danil Donk Krishkovets. Even then, Donk was already being talked about as a future star, and how right they were. The team looked good at Tier 2, but Tier 1 still brought problems. The Dragons only showed a confident result at their last tournament of 2023, Bet Boom Dhaka Dubai, where they took first place by beating MIBR and VP. However, this did not save the roster from changes. Artfrost was replaced by Dmitry Shiro Sokolov, bought out from Cloud9, and this was the very upgrade the Dragons had been missing. The club's management said they needed an experienced Tier 1 player, and Shiro fit that role perfectly. The community, however, did not believe in Dima joining the Dragons. As they say, "Haters, where are you now?" Despite a shaky start at Spring Blast, at the very next tournament, Katowice, Spirit steamrolled their opponents, 13 to 0 in the first play-in match against Apex, a confident 2-0 against the Mongols, 2 to 1 against Na'Vi, 2 to 0 against Complexity, and 2-0 against FaZe Clan in the group. Then, just as easy in playoffs, 2-0 against Falcons and 3-0 in the grand final against FaZe. Donk finished the tournament with a phenomenal 1.7 rating. Unfortunately, the same triumphant run didn't repeat at the Copenhagen Major, despite a confident 3-0 in elimination stage. In the very first playoff match, FaZe Clan took revenge for Katowice, 2 to 1, leaving Team Spirit 5th to 8th. Then the team went on to show consistent Tier 1 results. Second place at the first Bet Boom Dacha, 3rd to 4th at IEM Dallas, the Spring Blast Trophy, and then another Bet Boom Dacha Trophy. There were also worse results, 5th to 6th and 5th to 8th, and one shocking last place exit at Cologne. Still, by the Shanghai Major, the Dragons approached as, if not favourites, then at least dark horses capable of winning the main event of the season. Time to remember how it was. After a loss to Furia in the first elimination match, Spirit regrouped and closed their next 2 opponents easily. First Amaranth's Wildcard Gaming, 13 to 6, and then Natus Vincere with a crushing 13 to 2. And everyone remembers the heroic match thanks to one moment. That very one versus 5 Clutch on Mirage by Donk. Let's enjoy this masterpiece once more.
And it seemed like we were getting ready to celebrate progression for Team Spirit into the playoffs, but Heroic decide to silence Spirit. And Donk will go forward alone, but there's so many targets. And he can often prove enough on his own. And can this little nuisance pull off an unbelievable clutch to keep his team in it? Yes, he can! Donk the Destroyer with a 4K and all 5 in the end!
In playoffs, Spirit closed Liquid and Moz without problems, but in the final they once again faced FaZe. Just like Spirit, FaZe were dark horses, having stopped 2 favourites, Vitality and G2. And if you watched that final, you surely remember FaZe's comeback on Dust 2 from 6 to 12 to 11 to 12, especially that jumping AWP shot by our ops. But, as they say, That made it hurt even more. The Dragons took the decisive round, won the Major, and Donk became the youngest Major MVP in history, setting records for rating 1.49 and number of aces 4 in a tournament. And we must not forget Magixx's performance in the final. He scored just as many kills as Donk, 69. By year's end, Donk became the HLTV top 1 player, the youngest ever, and in his first full pro season. Thus, he broke Mathieu Ziwu Herbeau's 6-year record. On top of top 1, Danya also became Rookie of the Year, Best Entry, and won Highlight of the Year. And all this at 17. The 2025 season began for the Dragons with a trophy, winning Spring Blast. But at the next tournament, they ran into the formidable Vitality, the team that stopped them at 3 of the next 5 events. A painful 0-3 in the Katowice final, then 1-2 and 3rd to 4th at Blast in Lisbon, 0-2 and again 3rd to 4th at the next Blast. At ESL Pro League Season 21, Moz also stopped the Dragons in 3rd to 4th place. The same moves didn't let them past the quarterfinals at the Austin Major. After these failures, the team went for changes. Boris Magixx, after more than 6 years in the club, was benched. He was replaced by young and promising Ivan Zweih Gogin from Nemiga. The community split into 2 camps. Some thought it was a good move, others didn't believe it would change anything. As it turned out, it did. The first tournament of the second half of the 2025 season, Cologne, was won by the Dragons without problems. A confident 3-0 in the grand final against Moose for all the pain of past events. The next tournament, Blast Bounty, was also dominated by Spirit, 2-0 against Virtus.pro, Mouse again, another clean 2-0, and a grand final against the Mongols, 3-0 for Donk and company. But the victories weren't the most discussed topic of the tournament. The community was shaken by news that, according to rumors, after the World Championship Zontix would leave, replaced by Tnir from Heroic. Against the backdrop of Miroslav's strong performances, no one could explain why this transfer was needed, especially considering that not long before the org sold Kiyosuke for $2 million and bought Tnir for an estimated $1.5 million. And after this news, the team started shaking. Esports World Cup 2025, August, elimination after the very first match. Blast Open London 2025, shaky performance and only 7th to 8th place. And finally, on September 8th, Team Spirit officially announced Zontix going inactive, with the player himself explaining on social media, "After the Major, I asked management for a break from competing for personal reasons. Since the org needed time to find a replacement, we agreed that I would play for some time after the summer break. I'm expected to return to competition this winter." Overdrive also tried to clarify the situation. Miroslav is not listed for transfer and is not planning to look for a new team anytime soon. I think if the team needs him, he'll be able to return. But after such explanations, there are even more questions and fewer answers. If management allows the possibility of Zontix returning, then whose place will he take? Shiro and Donk are untouchable. Tnir and Zweih joined recently. That leaves Chopper. How realistic is such a reshuffle and who would be captain then? In conclusion, it's worth giving credit to the organization's management. Very few clubs manage to achieve such success in any discipline. And in Spirit's case, not in 1, but 2. And without big starting sponsors. With a big resource at hand, the org doesn't throw it around but methodically builds its roster, while also thinking of the future, investing in the academy. Thanks to such long-term planning, Spirit are now at the top and hopefully will remain there for a very long time. Falcons and Virtus Pro, take notes. This was Steam Inventory Helper. See you next time.